Thanks very much for a great talk. Are there any questions from the audience?
So I start. I have one question of understanding, basically. You had that bibliography, and just a quarter of that had a spatial index to single sources and bibliographic items. So how do you manage the rest to get some spatial relation? Especially, I mean, I can imagine that in some titles there's a clear reference. Let's say, book about the Casa del Fauno, that's easy. But how do you deal with a book like Volatility, covering everything, but saying nothing in the title? So how do you get that number of bibliographic entries to spatial information? Right.
So the first thing we have to do is accept the limitations in the world around us and realize that we're not going to get to 100% in any time soon. The first thing we'll do is we'll accept that we have this 25%, and then we'll build our full text armory with as much detail as possible. Everything before 1938 is potentially out of copyright and either already digitized or able to be digitized. We have a book scanner to actually do some of this work. We're not in our purview. We don't have a lot of digitization time for this part of the process. But what is out there, the hundreds and nearly thousands of volumes that are out there, once we parse that against our authority list, we'll be able to get a lot more out of the titles that either A, have no relationship to the index already, or B, have very few places that they're indexed, right? So we'll be then able to extract topographic information, apply that more widely. The next step would be then to simply do as much as we can to add to two areas. One is the OCR quality, resolution quality of the text, to make sure that we're getting what we want, and then. And I don't mean to gloss over, by the way. I say that and I don't mean to say that that's going to be easy, right? That's not a simplistic task to do that. That will be the red letter, the rubric of how it was done. The second part would be then to add in new sources and continually update those sources. The other, and maybe a third area would be that there are, although they're not enormous, there are individuals who work in specific places. There are students who work on whole areas of the city. And there are publications and research in progress that are more important than others towards getting at that information. So targeting those and announcing ourselves to the community, saying, listen, these resources that you're reading, tell us what's in them. Here's how you might go about doing that. So that's probably the last way that we'll go at it. I think that's going to be the most difficult to deal with in terms of the quality of the information. But it's, I think, one of the most important ongoing aspects of the project. I hope that answers your question.
More questions?
You used the term 4D visualization to refer to the integration of time with the geography that is normally visualized in maps. It just made me wonder, a very, very simple question, whether you had thought about either including or incorporating pre-existing 3D visualizations of various kinds.
Absolutely.
Into these maps. I'm thinking of things like the Theatron and work done in, you know, the King's Visualization Lab,
right,
and various other things. So visualizations not only of 3 dimensions of the things that exist, but of things that are extrapolated, you know, the higher floor stories of buildings and larger monuments, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Are you thinking of Drew Baker's work in the theater? Yeah. So that kind of work, that kind of detailed reconstruction work that's been done in the theater, detailed but not particularly precise reconstruction work in SketchUp that a number of models have been made and produced, set out around the internet. We have made in the Quadriporticus project laser theodolite, laser scanner information. We're doing photogrammetry there. There are production models that I've been a part of from a laser theodolite from around the city. And there are even, there was, at the greatest resolution, the Japanese did a overall, I'm struggling with the source right now. But to come back to it, yes. And obviously SciArc and the great work done there. I glossed over that because it's a difficult integration question. I struggle with that. The integration of three-dimensional spatial data with, largely speaking, two-dimensional information, right? So I want to make that a separate problem, basically, right? So for the Quadriporticus, it's really quite simple. My ideas would be to take the information that I have that is actually located in 3 dimensions and map it onto my 3-dimensional data and actually make it that kind of resolution and say, here is a stratigraphic unit of this height that fits on this wall. You can go at it and follow that string out to our research data and our database information and images. I'm not sure how to do that at the city level without introducing not necessarily complexity, but ambiguity for the user. You know, what would they expect in any given moment? I think the way to handle that at the moment, and I'll take all advice, but the way to handle that at the moment is maybe to just try to have either use third parties or create a third-party environment for that third dimension. And you're very perceptive. I couldn't say 3D and leave out 3D, meaning so I had to leave it out. But that is that's the vanguard of the next things that we'll do, and I hope to be a part of that. But God, I got to finish this first.
Yeah, I just wonder because the great value of visualization as opposed to simple 3D data is that it enables you to get models of things that don't exist, that aren't in the archaeological record, either because they're not anymore, or they're destroyed, or we can only extrapolate them, or because they've been divided into all sorts of places. Yeah. So I'm imagining this more at the room level, even than the building level. Absolutely.
I mean, I just gave a talk on photogrammetry, and one of the things that I really emphasized on that, was in complete agreement with you, is that there's a room that we recreated in the Quadriporticus that has a sewer behind it. And it's the only place, the rest of the sewer had been destroyed. It's the only place where the profile of that survived. And by recreating it in photogrammetry, you could rotate the model and actually get the profile of the sewer that doesn't exist anywhere else. And then we didn't do photogrammetry on the sewer where it does exist, but you could actually compare the profiles of the two. So you could recreate, you could take reality and take virtual reality and use them to confirm or refute each other. So absolutely, we definitely want to have that as part of the model. We'll shove all of our Quadriporticus data in there, probably through our site. So you can see the model of a third party entity handling that. Thank you. Great question.
I have one about how you're planning. Maybe it's a bit early, but how are you planning to make available the resources produced, like apart from the full text, but the GIS document that you mentioned that was produced, and all the resources, how is the interaction with the community going to be once the project is finished?
So the technical answer is that one of the things that our funders liked wasn't. We're going to use ArcGIS server. One of the things that our funders liked was not that we were using a out-of-the-box platform, a commercial platform, necessarily, but that our university has completely invested in this process. And University of Massachusetts Amherst has bought wholeheartedly into this process. And so from a kind of design and sustainability question, I don't have to get another grant for this to survive for as long as UMass and I have a relationship, or longer if I die. so one part of it is that will be the technical medium through which we do it. Maybe the social arrangement for it will be that I pretty much will let anyone have it who wants to, who isn't going to try to make money off of it. That's about the only constraint I'd like to put on it. And as far as adding things back in, I haven't given thought to how to do that. There are a few people in our community who have some, let's say, extreme views on reconstructing the city, and I don't want to. I don't want to be the arbiter of the value of their interpretation. So currently, my thinking would be to simply allow the users to choose or not choose to use their information. I would accept it as long as I'm not being spammed by it. I would choose to accept it and say, fine, this reconstruction of Pompeii leads all the way into the 17th century. That's fine. But I'll let the rest of the Pompeian community decide whether or not that's how they want to use their base plan. All right. There's some difficulty in reconstructing the other 15 centuries there, but I leave it up to them to make that decision. Yes?
After all these years and all this experience you gained from your research project, if there's somebody who's thinking about starting such a project by his own, what kind of advice would you give? And what does starting such a project require?
Oh, wow. That is an amazing question. And I will admit to having no good answer off the top of my head, or nothing prepared. You've really given me a good thing to think about. The first thing that came to my mind was luck. I mean, honestly, the luck was that there was a resource of there was a corpus of Pompeian bibliography that someone else had put together. So that's one part of it. The other part of it would be, if someone else wanted to do something like this, would be the two things I would say to start is figure out what are your two major sources of data. How well organized are they? Do you have a good cohesive internal bibliography, and can you use it? And is it in digital format already, or is it not? And then looking at the space of an archaeological site, or this concept doesn't have to be an archaeological site. It could be it could be anything that has a quality in which the space of the question, space involved in the questions, can structure the kinds of questions you want to ask about it, right? So I think I've said things like, things that might be interesting would be to look at, in English literature, mapping out places in Victorian London where not only the actors in the characters in these novels and books will have lived and traversed, but also the authors, and seeing if there's commonalities and intentions in that. So I think they can be broader, but then you have to assess whether or not you have appropriate spatial information. And that can be really tricky because on the one hand, if you have nothing, it can be really difficult as a startup, right? You just look at digitizing an entire archaeological landscape of a major Hellenistic city, let's say. That can be a daunting challenge, but but the opposite can be true as well. So an example of this is my wife's research. She's a sociologist. She works on gangs and crime in the United States. And getting police data to match census data is a real challenge, not because there isn't good data available. It's that the boundaries don't always match. So the difficulty can be just the same, of kind of starting as if you had nothing, but starting with something else, because you need to change things. You need to define and divide each one of those aspects. So if you're a person starting a process like this, the first thing you need to do is take a really good a census, an inventory of what's available out and what's out there, and see if that's something that's going to be surmountable in any kind of near term. And then I guess I'd ask myself in that situation, how well does the information, the bibliographic or kind of attribute information, how well is that integrated to the space? Do people talk about space a lot, or do they not? And if you don't have a lot of space mentioned, it's going to be a lot harder to put them together, even and to do that in meaningful ways. You asked the winning question tonight. Thank you.